That, my friends, is a track called But Nobody Came, a collaborative track between two maids, Sib and Dore. The reason I'm first having you listen to this track is not only because it's important to first become familiar with the sounds that this niche produces, but also because I believe this track really helps emphasize and present the properties of what makes the sound of maidcore. Mostly. Both of these artists exhibit their own unique styles, originating from various mediums. Suffice to say, maidcore is not necessarily a genre, but rather an umbrella term that just so happens to commonly incorporate sounds from genres such as post-rock, metal, and various kinds of electronic sounds. Many of us here in the West, including myself, originally mistaken it as a musical genre, but that's not entirely true. Maidcore is more than just those three things. It's foreign, it's Russian, it's confusing, but you'll understand it a lot more by the end of this video. Something you may have noticed about these two, Sib the Maid and Dore the Maid, is that they're both maids, but more specifically, they're both branded as blank the Maid. That's not to say that these two are the musician equivalent of matching avatars. No. The Maid is a suffix which will help you, dear viewer, identify what a maidcore artist is as a newcomer. However, Sib and Dore are not the only maids out there. You may be familiar with Yakui the Maid, Yabai the Maid, Chikoi the Maid, Ozoi the Maid, Itai the Maid, Medoi the Maid, Kaitai the Maid, Kichi the Maid.
What the fuck? This bitch ain't no goddamn maidcore. This bitch ain't even a goddamn maid. You better not be spreading misinformation again.
Yeah, I know. On the surface, there are a lot of artists that have taken on the identity of a maid, and nearly all of their names abide by the same template of blank the Maid. But it surely isn't as simple as that. There are artists like Kichi or Maho Kichi who don't have this suffix, yet are still associated with this term, but even still, what's the big deal, right? Why are a bunch of Russian people role-playing as maids, and is this a genre? What the fuck is this? Those are some great questions, but in order to answer that, let's have Kagemine Rin get you a little bit more familiar with these characters. Jesus fucking Christ, dude. Oh my god, I hate fucking dude voiceovers.
Kanye West!
What's up, the course? Let's go to Mini and Beach. But with some more motherfucking video mates. Ooh, but then this track is fire. Okay, so, what the fuck is this? Basically, there was an unknown from Adobe channel who created made voice and cause he was like, lonely as shit. Then someone made a whole fuck ton of new mates. Hence, Niji, you're a maid. You're a maid. Teehee. So you're Yakui. You're right, this bitch I can't pronounce her name. All from her double channel. There is your crash course. Now, fast forward to the 2010s. Some Rusky thought, fuck it, I'm gonna just roleplay this junkie whore to help label my music. A pretty good idea. But this idea would then go on to infect hundreds, even thousands of people with personality disorders, substance use problems, major depressive symptoms, and social anxiety disorders, all having varying levels of autism. Pretty awesome, right? Now you might be thinking to yourself, why? And that is a good question. Thankfully, we got some mates with us here to answer that for us. In the meantime, God bless. Hop, hop.
This track's really good. I'm gonna leave it on a little longer. But yeah, basic shit. You get the gist of it now. The roleplay as the maids, that's like the whole gimmick of maidcore. I know I made a video on this already, but whatever, okay? Fuck off. Anyways, after listening to a few maidcore artists, you should be fairly familiar with what this niche is all about. But again, all that variety is daunting, because like, why is everything so different? That Sib and Dore track you heard earlier, it's nothing like this track right here. So the vagueness is super apparent, and there's all kinds of shit like this in the maidcore scene. Oh, I think the song's over now. But yeah, there's all kinds of shit like this. It's crazy. You know, I could sit here and throw a whole ass load of musical jargon at you that I don't even understand myself, and neither would you. You know you're not going to remember what a breakbeat part with
rolling 808 bases in 3 ways
is, so why the fuck should I bother? The goal here is to dig a bit deeper than just maids are emo, bro. I'm confused. I barely have any idea about what this actually is, and everyone seems to have a different answer to what is maidcore. I'm tired, man. So I went ahead and just took it upon myself to just fucking ask the maids myself. Yeah, it's a crazy concept, I know. It's very weird. It's almost like humans are social creatures or some shit. Now, it's also a little bit tricky. As previously mentioned, maidcore is a term originating from Russia. Maidcore artists, for the most part, are all Russian, meaning they aren't posting their shit and building connections in Twitter DMs. They're posting their shit and building connections in VK, which is like this Russian Facebook thingy. The language barrier is an obstacle that us Westerners need to climb in order to dissect the frog named maidcore. I, as a Westerner, can't exactly just pop in and shove these questions down the maids' throats. I need connections. I need to network. Plus, I'm shy. Big thanks to Mad M for not only helping out with the thumbnail, but also for helping me kickstart this whole project. Go check out his game, Project Basement Dating. God damn, look at that art style, man. How could you not want to play that? It's also about the maids, so it actually relates to the topic of the video. It's not just some random shill. It's badass as fuck, dude. Go check it out. But anyways, I've been granted the opportunity to speak to 5 different maidcore artists. Some old dogs and some new bloods that will help us understand this weird thing just a little bit more. Now let me just clarify, I have never conducted an interview before. I have no fucking idea what I'm doing, but I think I did fine. My questions weren't terrible. Overall, I got what I was looking for, at least the bare minimum. But anyways, you might know these maids, you may not, so let's run through a brief introduction for each maid. For the introduction, there were 3 main questions that I asked that differ depending on how long they've been around, who they are, whatever. But they all look something like this. 1. Give us a brief introduction to you and your music, and how were you first introduced to maidcore? 2. What are some external influences outside of maidcore that helped you in making your music? And 3. Why did you choose to inhabit the identity of blank? Now keep in mind the translations is kinda all fucked up, so I'll try my best to translate their answers without changing anything. Just keep in mind there may or may not be a few translation errors that flew under the radar, so just keep that at the back of your mind. But anyways, let's start with Dore. I am Dore the Maid. I make some depressive metal / electronic stuff. I started making music about 4 or 5 years ago by playing some old metal songs on my classical guitar. I didn't expect that I would get into maidcore. I originally planned to write positive Russian rock music and make a band, but one day I randomly came across a video called Maidcore Mix. I was confused about how so many artists had the maid at the end of their nicknames, but when I started to explore it, I really started to enjoy the atmosphere that was set. Anime maids in a Russian doomer vibe. It was that day that I decided I wanted to become a maidcore artist. To be honest, I don't really know much about maidcore music, and I took more inspiration from non-maidcore artists. For example, with my project Flooring, I decided to name one of my tracks after that. I was definitely influenced by the, in my opinion, brilliant soundtrack of Undertale and Amori. I also got a lot of inspiration from Albert Kabu, both from his music and his personality. I also can't help but mention Alex Cherry. It may seem impossible to compare my music and his, but he had a huge influence on me. I also went ahead and asked Dore about what some of these games like Undertale and Amori meant to him and what properties he's hoping these games could give him to help complement his art specifically. Here's what he told me. I see in these games the idea of how a person cannot be what they truly seem, which is especially prevalent in Amori, a game about accepting yourself and your past mistakes. I think there is something in it that reminds me of myself as a person. I'm not usually a depressed person at all, but sometimes when I'm hurt and sad, I feel something beautiful and something even romantic about it. With my music, I want to show people how I see pain and sadness, and that there's more to it than just suffering. Dore seems like a very poetic kind of fella, and I was genuinely interested to hear him elaborate more on the romance behind sadness. Here's what he told me. It's hard to explain. I just think when I experience sad emotions, I look at the world differently. I have thoughts that are interesting to think about. It's amazing how the brain can get pleasure from even just a beautiful statement, and such statements and thoughts are born much more often in such a state. It's hard to do anything useful in this state, but it allows you to dig deeper into yourself, and I really appreciate that. In the end, I think that to always experience happiness is not the right way to live. Life is when you feel both good and bad emotions. It is in this harmony that there is beauty and romance in life. That's fucking beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. Now, I did not expect words like that to come out of someone who decided to pick Dore as their maid, who is a slave, which made me even more curious about the next question of why he decided to choose Dore to help represent his art. Here's what he told me. When I first saw Dore, the first thing I said was, no, it's kind of degrading, or something like that. But the longer I thought about it, the more I thought that there was something rather attractive about Dore to me. Personally, for me and my art, I have changed the story of Dore a little bit. My Dore has already buried her master, and now she has no friends, no family, no money, and even no purpose to exist. Her essence of life was to serve her master. He was her everything, and now she has lost everything. She is strong in spirit, but having lost her master, she is depressed. This train of thought gives me inspiration. Not everyone accepts Dore, as her initial message is a racist joke, but I love the fact that Dore is the only maid they try to reject. She is the white crow amongst the other maids. I was the same way when I was a kid, so I see myself in her a little bit. That is fucking beautiful, man. That's great. I like that. Dore seems like a massive sweetheart, so go check out his VK, his SoundCloud, Yandex Music, if that works in your country. Send him some love. He's a pretty new artist in the maidcore scene, and his music is underrated as fuck, man. You're listening to it right now, man. I mean, come on. You can hear it for yourself. Go, get out of here. But once you come back, we're going to move on to Sib. Now, Sib was a total bro, but holy shit, man, Deep L really butchered the fuck out of his answers, man. By the way, Deep L, not a fan of how you're calling maidcore midcore. Gonna have to write you a subpoena for that one. But anyways, Sib I think is an interesting one, considering Sib isn't a maid from Futaba channel. But anyways, here are his responses. I'm a bit of a messed up person in my life. I'm trying to make something similar to nu metal, but it often comes out as shoegaze. I started wanting to play guitar a little over 5 years ago, but I started practicing and writing my own stuff 2 years ago. I was introduced to maidcore in 2015, probably like everyone else with Yakui. I'm often inspired by very different things, depending on my mood, from music, yeah I know, I'll explain that in a second, to old Seosin and Sadness releases. Before I started making my own music, I listened to post-rock for a long time. That's probably where most of my inspiration comes from. Often when listening to music, regardless of genre, I hear some cool techniques and I want to do the same, but I'm stymied by my lack of playing skills, but I still try. For the most part, it's listening to music and trying to do the same thing that drives me as a musician. Now, music, what is that, right? I asked him to elaborate on what that was, and he explained that in his Warm Day album, the track Ellipsis was inspired by this old meme title, Pisskoff. I couldn't really find much info on it aside from some Pisskoff porn mixes on YouTube, which when comparing Sib's track to the music contained in these mixes, yeah, definitely some resemblance. Fire album, by the way. But anyways, Sib isn't a maid that actually originated from Futaba channel like many of these other maidcore artists. I was curious to learn about the character of Sib, so I went ahead and asked him about her, which he then responded. Sib is my good old nickname. At the moment of the first release, I thought, you can always have a legitimate name, but the music will remain as shit as it was. I'm still of that opinion, and it's too late to change it. The character is based on my own character, a depressed maid who is afraid to live and often procrastinates. The character itself was created in a rather lazy manner, as I didn't think anyone would like my music in the first place. There's definitely a connection between us, but even so, the maid fits my music quite accurately. I don't really want to change anything at the moment, but if there will be any sort of metamorphosis, it'll be in the distant future and I'll go through it together with Sib. So maids don't need to be from Futaba channel? Yeah, apparently so. Maidcore is very flexible like that, and Sib is a great example. But like Dore, Sib is underrated as fuck. The track you're listening to right now is from an EP called Musical Incompetence. Really good stuff. I also really like Kaidi, Return, very underrated maid, definitely go check that shit out. So with someone like Sib being a part of maidcore, what does that mean about the characters? Do they even need to be maids? Well, the next maid will confirm just that. Kichi here isn't actually a maid, which makes him particularly interesting in my opinion. I'll get more into his character Kichi in a bit, but in the meantime, to be short, I try to progress in what I do and constantly try to find new approaches to creating music, like changing genres and mixing them. I also try to put some kind of fictional stories into my music. Sometimes it's my own feelings, sometimes it's a story about a character that reflects real life. I was introduced to maidcore approximately after I met Yakui and started to create music more actively. It was like in 2017, I guess. And after our first collab, Inside, I heard some words about maidcore. Before that, I hadn't really heard anything about it from people. Perhaps this word didn't exist. At that time, there were only 4 active maids: Yakui, Ozoi, Itai, and Yabai. Maidcore doesn't influence my works at all. Only Yakui is affected because he was my mentor and good friend in the first place. I'm very grateful to him. For the second question, he went on and expanded a bit about the notion of him being a maidcore artist, to which he said, I've never classified my music as maidcore, it's something other people have labeled me as. But after some time I've come to terms with it. Now I don't deny that I belong to the maidcore scene. Especially since I've been in this community for quite a long time and know a lot about it. So yeah, we are where we are. There's no point to deny it anymore. Being a part of community is cool, TBH. So about influences. I just watch a lot of music videos, listen to different bands, look at how Yakui's doing his stuff. I also used to like Yoai's music, so I just go, fuck it, I want to do this too. At least I need to try. It is because of this that I'm always trying to do something new. Now in Kichi's case, he's not exactly a maid and has already exclaimed that he didn't initially classify his music as maidcore. His stance does appear to have changed a bit over the years, and the character he uses to represent his art, Kichi, or Maho Kichi, is obviously an original character. The other maids already have a set lore, personality, story, but we don't know anything about Kichi, so who is she? Here's what he said. People can call me whatever they want to. The maid, Maho Kichi, or just Kichi. Maho Kichi is a name for my account because for some reason the result for Kichi is food. XD. Anyways, my character is original. I was about to take one from Futaba, but I decided to just make one myself. So yeah, Kichi is just Kichi. A girl with an eggplant who lives in a virtual space. I kinda have lore for her, but it's too complicated for me to explain in text. So in short, she lives in a virtual space where the structure of the world depends on her mood, while her real body can't move nor can she see anything. She's in a coma plugged into the virtual space. It's weird, I know, but anyways, this gives me the opportunity to create different kinds of stories. Her personality is quite difficult to explain, but she's funny and serious at the same time. And no, she's not a witch. I asked if she was a witch because he had Maho in her name, which is like a witch. Kichi, Maho Kichi, Kichi the maid, whatever you want to call him. He's been in the game for a long time now and is one of the artists with the most variety. Seriously, you pick 2 random tracks from this guy, bam, completely different. It's like you're listening to 2 different artists, which is something I fuck with heavy. Overall, seems like a pretty chill ass dude. Go check out his Reborn album. It's really good. It's so good it almost got my ass a speeding ticket. So, yeah. Anyways, next we got Ozoi. Had to go to VK for this one. Man, that was a bitch to sign up for. Sorry if my account gets compromised and starts sending out phishing links or something. VK's kind of blocking Canadian numbers, but that ain't gonna stop me. Ozoi is another long-running member of the maidcore scene, so I thought it would be especially important to get her thoughts on this whole topic. But first, let's get you introduced. I perceive myself as just a living function. I'm doing something, and some portion of that is what you can see as my content. I've been a fan of Yakui since 2013. I started making music with no skills or knowledge whatsoever, other than vocal practices. Therefore, I'm completely self-taught. I've never watched any YouTube guides or anything like that. I simply can't stand it. It's easier for me to figure out a way to do something rather than to sit still and learn. Some inspiration outside of maidcore: Linkin Park, fuck yeah, hardcore, Russian rock music, Rice Record Circle, hardcore techno/nightcore, Ling Tosit Sigur, and Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl. Ozoi suits me more than I thought of it when I was initially choosing her. My music career is, or was, a joke, and I've taken that character because it reminded me of Sadako, of whom I was afraid of as a child. I can't say that the visual aspect of Ozoi directly resembles something in my music, but the Row 47's version of her from the Wonderland album sure is. For me, Ozoi resembles something in myself as a person, as a public image, and how people see me. Ozoi's been around the block, so to say, and is quite a unique artist, especially with her use of vocals and even Vocaloid software in many of her tracks. It's not something that's commonly seen with other maidcore artists. Plus, I like Stalker, so that makes me dig her music even more. Like Kichi, you can find her pretty much anywhere at this point. She's got merch on her Bandcamp. I think you get the deal. All these artists are good, man. Come on. But anyways, last but not least, you know him. We all know him, ladies and gentlemen. Yakui the maid. Fuck me. I think everyone that has clicked on this video has at some point heard of Yakui in one way or another. Hell, I've met people who don't know what maidcore is yet are still familiar with his music. He's been around for like 10 years or so I think it was especially important to get some of his words for the video. But let's go ahead and cover some ground about who Yakui is. There's not much to say about my music. I've been writing what I like for 15 plus years, and I've been publishing since 2013. Before that, I mostly wrote for myself to listen to while I commute to work. There's not much to say about my past either, just a normal life without a normal job or education. There wasn't much to ask about how Yakui first came across maidcore since he's kind of been around since the inception, and he didn't really have much to say on that anyway. But even then, with over 15 years of musical experience, I was curious about the factors that influenced him into making the kind of music he's been making since his time as Yakui. I was inspired by the very possibility of doing something with only a computer, pirated software, and a guitar. Anything that I've listened to was inspiring. I've been inspired by a lot of things over the years. Too long of a list, but Nintendo Core, post-rock, and post-metal. I also used to like to record all sorts of railroad noises on a tape recorder. For the third question, I also asked him if he could cover a bit on how he first came across the maids alongside the reason why he chose Yakui. From which he told me this: I just liked the mascot. There wasn't any deep connection from the beginning. I was just too lazy to come up with something original as a pseudonym, but nowadays we are somewhat alike. I spend a lot of my time like that. It's just literally me, only with alcohol instead of substances. Then he sent me a picture of Yakui flashing her ass and drinking slime. Hell yeah, dude, rock on. Yakui, for the most part, didn't have a lot to say on the topic of maidcore, but I do find his responses on the topic to be particularly interesting. Him and Ozoi, as their answers were very similar. After 5 separate interviews, I must have the utmost best understanding of what maidcore is, so much to the point where I can just walk straight into Merriam-Webster headquarters and slap the definition of maidcore right on the English dictionary, right? Yeah, totally, dude, yeah. I got the definition right here, yeah, totally. I'm laughing because that's a lie. The shit is so vague that I don't even know where to begin. Basically, the question I asked all the maids was this. Some have referred to maidcore as a genre, whereas others have referred to it as being a style or simply a way to classify the artists. In your own words, can you define what maidcore is and what it means to you and your art? Despite all their takes being somewhat different, the one thing that remained consistent was that maidcore is not a genre, and it can't be a genre for one big reason, and that is the fact that there are way too many different styles and genres that have been thrown into the melting pot known as maidcore. A lot of it is similar, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a genre. If that were the case, they'd just call it fucking post-rock with anime girls on the cover or some shit, man. Maidcore is almost pretty much anything. Now, I will admit, I'm kind of over-exaggerating this a bit. I do have a far better understanding of what maidcore is after speaking with each of these maids, and all of their responses was very helpful and informative. But I did not expect the meaning to be this loose, man. I'm going to briefly go through some of these answers, but I'm first going to go through Yakui and Ozue's answers. I believe their responses were the most interesting, albeit a little underwhelming. According to both Ozue and Yakui, the term maidcore, or maid cafe, was originally started as a little joke. They didn't really take it seriously, nor did they expect the term to go anywhere beyond just a joke. But of course, with the internet being the internet, the people that have moved into this circle would eventually form a community around this term, eventually shifting the meaning into something completely different, which appears to be something reflected with both the new artists and fans of the artists that would become part of this community years later. And I think that's why I find this to be so interesting. This might be a bit fucking dramatic for me to say, but to see something with next to no roots in the soil still managing to bloom into something small yet colorful is a very beautiful thought to me. But that thought has less to do with the roots, or lack thereof, and more to do with the people that have stopped by to feed this plant so it can grow into something healthy and awe-inspiring. I don't exactly feel confident in expanding onto this point as I didn't get to speak with too many newer artists, but I think Dore's response really helps put this into perspective, especially since he's discovered maidcore somewhat recently. In my opinion, maidcore is not a genre, but a culture, just a little underdeveloped. I sense the romance of Russian longing, anime culture, loneliness, and of course some music that usually conveys it. Earlier I mentioned about the amazing yet strange feelings I had when I first immersed myself in the atmosphere of maidcore. I think this mystery and melancholy is what a person gets from maidcore and doesn't regret it. I know some might think that's a little melodramatic, but this is what happens when a community is built around a specific topic, in this case some music. And it's something that I can totally get behind. I find it hard to believe that there are so many people that didn't join this community and even upload their own art if they didn't feel something similar, at least in the case of the newer artists. I can't speak for the Russian fans, but at least with us in the West there are many of us, including myself, that feel something similar, despite the fan base in this region being very small in comparison. Cute anime maids combined with the specific kinds of emotion conveyed from many of these artists really help resonate with a lot of people. Not only is the music fucking banger, but that combined with the maids and their stories and personality really do help tell a story, even if that's something the artist might not have intended. And that's why I find this shit to be so cool at least from an outsider perspective. Or you might just like the fucking music. Not everyone fucks with that sentiment. It ain't that deep, bro. So what is maidcore? There's no official definition, it's not a genre, everyone seems to have a different take, and we got characters like Kichi who aren't from Futaba channel or hell isn't even a maid to begin with, yet is still maidcore. Sib considers maidcore as a canon that you don't necessarily have to follow, similar to how the Nijira maids are designed. Dore, perfect example, he rewrote Dore's character to better fit his ideals. Or an even better example, Kichi, who actually refers to it as either the community or the class of musicians whose music changes depending on who you're listening to, or in Kichi's case, depending on which track you're listening to. Both pretty similar, and I don't think anyone can argue with those takes. And of course, we've already covered Dore, Yakui, and Ozue, whose takes kind of all tie back to it just being a term to help classify the artist or tag the content. So overall, extremely fucking vague. So how do we actually define maidcore? If I was talking to someone who has no idea what maidcore is and knows nothing about it, how can I very briefly define the term while keeping it as concise as possible? I'm not gonna do the video essays move of, I don't know, man, tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Nuh-uh. I'm gonna define this shit, and hopefully I don't piss anyone off. Okay, here we go. Taking everything so far into account, Here's what I came up with. Maidcore. A broad and non-conformist term referring to a classification of musicians and artists who take on the pseudonym of an anime girl, mostly originating from the Futaba channel image board of net characters, Nijira Maids. The art is generally presented as individualistic, unorthodox, emotional, and tends to contain hyper, dark, and/or aggressive themes. It's punk rock with anime girls, man. I don't fucking know. I know that isn't the best definition, but I'm gonna let that bounce off of you guys, and you guys can just add or subtract whatever you want from it. Now, this definition doesn't mention anything about Russia, which might piss some people off. This term originated from Russia. This is a very Russian community of people. I had to interview these guys with Deep L for fuck's sake. So what's the deal, Spicy Mayo? Why are you not crediting us for something Russia made? You think you Westerners can just come in here and claim this shit as yours? Oh, what is it, huh? What, you still pissed off about Ukraine? Is that it? Oh, Ukraine. Oh, is that it? Oh, boo-hoo, you fucking lame-ass, stupid piece of shit fucking... As Westerners, our perception of Russians is all fucked up. You know, you play a few COD campaigns as a kid, you watch a few Steven Seagal movies, you start learning about the Cold War, and now all of a sudden we all have this weird, irrational fear of Russians that they're all standing over us 8 feet tall, ready to pinch our heads off because they all hate our guts, which... I can't blame them, you know, we're kind of dicks. But this natural fear that's been etched into my subconscious had me quite worried about covering maidcore as a Westerner. Maidcore in and of itself is very distinct, and as far as I know, there are no maidcore artists that reside in the West. So there was part of me that feared that we would be shunned away from this community, at least as a gatekeeping is a term, right? And why do people gatekeep? Well, I spent X amount of years dedicating my life to this specific hobby, learning about it, studying about it, and now I have reached a point where I'm not only a master of this craft, but an encyclopedia of knowledge for this specific hobby and the topics that surround it. Fast forward a year later, this hobby blows up and now a whole swarm of new people come in, with a good chunk of those people misinterpreting points, bending definitions, and misidentifying labels. Now these sprouts of misinformation have infected this thing that I used to be incredibly passionate about, and my hobby has now become unrecognizable and ugly. Despite all the efforts I took to teach newcomers about this thing, all of my efforts were futile, and I now feel alienated and abandoned. From here on out, I'm going to gatekeep all of my hobbies. There's this image that was shared in this one group chat that I'm in, and it's pretty incel-y, but the message is pretty cut and clear. The more people that become a part of something, the more that thing shifts into something else. And this can be a good thing. There are a lot of musical genres today that never would have existed if an entirely new demographic hadn't become part of its niche and gained inspiration from those things to create something new or revolutionary. I mean, for fuck's sake, man, if white people never listened to Johnny B. Good, we'd probably still have colored water fountains. But this is the main reason why people gatekeep. The West is an entirely new demographic of people with different kinds of beliefs, motives, ideals, inspirations, and personalities. It's unpredictable what could happen if something like maidcore, an extremely niche and underground community of artists and fans mostly originating from Russia, receives an entirely new swarm of newcomers on an international scale, hell, let alone a domestic one. It's something that people in the community of maidcore have discussed. As a result, there's a good number of fans that don't like the idea of maidcore going mainstream because they fear it's going to ruin the thing that they love, and I can definitely sympathize with those people. I've seen this kind of thing happen to many of my own hobbies. Those hobbies are my identity, and the moment those things became mainstream and started shifting into something completely different, the more I felt alienated. So I totally get where these people are coming from, and I don't blame them at all for wanting to gatekeep, especially in the case of the West. But I figured that instead of playing Theory Simulator and gatekeeping because we're afraid of the outcomes, it'd be best to at the very least ask some of these maids their thoughts on the idea of maidcore becoming mainstream, whether it be domestic or international. Ozoi, Yakui, Kichi, Dore, Sib, all of these maids have pretty much come to fairly similar conclusions that they very much don't give a shit. Well, the general perception is that they're totally cool with the idea of Westerners getting involved and are genuinely kind of interested to see what comes out of it. Obviously, they don't all share the exact same beliefs, but I'll be going through each of their answers individually to hopefully help paint the picture that it's probably not as bad as it sounds. The main question that I asked all the maids was this. Maidcore is a term that is undoubtedly and predominantly Russian. However, with the emergence of maidcore mix videos on YouTube, since 2020 the music has been slowly gaining more recognition here in the West. As a Westerner, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this matter. Are you happy with the thought of maidcore expanding overseas and possibly inspiring Western artists to get involved in the community? Or do you fear that Western influences would taint the community and shift it into something that is unrecognizable from what it currently is? Here are their responses. I like the Russian atmosphere, but maybe something good will come out of it if it does. It's always interesting to see something new. Today's maidcore doesn't quite suit me. It stands still, and no matter how unknown I am, I feel strong enough to make a big contribution to the development of maidcore. It's only a matter of time, but I'm confident in my abilities.
It's actually cool that maidcore music is slowly becoming more popular, not only in Russia but also in general. It's getting out of the underground. Sometimes people talk about it in the community. Sometimes they joke about Yakui being listened to all over China.
They're already like Western maids, and the more maids the better. I think Deepel kind of fucked that last part up, but I think you get the idea. Having more maids sounds pretty awesome.
I've never thought about it actually. I think this will be nice, but at the same time it's going to become something that is different from what it currently is. I hope you get the point.
I'm definitely not afraid of growth in the community internationally. The art itself and the internet is a global place for all of us, and it should never be limited to one language or country.
I used to dream that one day VK.com itself will be recognized as a better Twitter, Facebook, or SoundCloud alternative and will become truly international. But it seems the global platform that is stitching us all together now is YouTube.
So let it be like that. It's still better than Facebook or Twitter. The Russian cultural influence is the biggest in Maid Cafe, despite the characters being originally Japanese made. I think that even if we grew the audience and more artists come from the West, the Russian part will still take some place in a future cultural mix of the community and art. I'm looking forward to Maid Cafe becoming more widespread. Even if we grow 10 times the current numbers, we will still remain niche.
And there will not be any loss of indie underground flavor that I can see people being afraid of losing.
The community now is already very different from what it was when I started, and I don't care. My role is making content. Community is something that evolves organically, and it's not forcing me to do anything, nor is it impacting my music, so let it be just as it will be. But I'm surely interested for everything in the fans' resources to look cool and aesthetic in terms of media. I like when things are organized good, technically. Plus, I'm happy to see that the community from other parts of the world are just as supportive as a domestic one. People are registering here on VK.com, buying merch, and in general showing themselves as motivated and excited for our projects to grow. My thanks to everyone who has supported me. It may sound funny, but it's not the quantity of fans that helps me, it's the quality. Yet I'm still thinking that my Western audience is 2 to 3 times smaller than it should be. Maybe we need time to reach more people, maybe we need more content in English. For me, writing lyrics in English is much easier than in Russian, so I'll try that for myself in the future. I've spoken with some people in the community and other artists about our music growing in the West, but I think we all came with the same questions with no answers. There's too little of an audience in the West, and we have no idea why.
The music is niche, but that small amount of listeners feels like it's not because of the music.
It's because there's no way for people to find it in the West. I think it will change in one way or another anyway.
I don't care about this community like I always have. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing while I can. Western or Eastern influences are unlikely to spoil anything, as we're all inspired by Western and Eastern music, be it American, Japanese, etc. Anyways, the more it all mixes, the more interesting it is. I don't think this will ever be popular, so the little elitist club is unlikely to suffer. But even if it does, it's better to just be happy that the cute little maids will be able to eat properly.
Yeah, I mean, no shit, right? They're musicians. Of course they want more people listening to their music, and especially on an international scale. But it appears they all share the same belief that Western influences are unlikely to have any kind of negative effects on the music or the community, and for the most part can only make things more interesting, albeit different. But maybe you Western artists out there are still a little bit iffy on how to get started and a bit anxious because of that. Well, in that case, the next question I asked was this. Is there anything you would like to say to any aspiring maidcore artists that may be watching this video, whether they be Western or Russian? Do it and try to do it sincerely. If you can't do it beautifully, do it ugly and maybe something will come out of it. You are capable of more than you think. I like that a lot. Do it ugly and maybe something will come out of it. That's good. Be tough like Ozoi, be mature like Yakui, be skillful like Chikoi, and don't get sick like Yowai. Hell yeah, dude. Try and experiment, but don't forget to develop yourself. You never know how much it can grow. Don't just write what is written. You always need to strive somewhere. And of course, don't parasitize on the name and take responsibility for the fact that you are part of this community. There should be 2 motivations for an artist. 1, the desire to create something, and 2, the itching feeling of the absence that there is something you desire in other art which was not created by you. You should create something that feels complete and meaningful and something that wasn't done before you. If you want to write music like somebody did or in a particular genre, just go listen to that artist or that genre on Spotify. If you create something that will sound like you and like a new genre. The maidcore tag is just a tag, mostly about the relation of the tag works with the maid community. Use a FL Studio limiter on master or sound goodizer and use some downloaded drum loops or MIDI patterns to start quick. Then write something inappropriate over them and congrats, you have now created maidcore. I don't know what to say. Don't do drugs, alcohol, listen to your mom, and hardcore. Fuck yeah, dude. I don't know if he's saying don't do drugs and alcohol or don't do drugs but drink alcohol, but fuck yeah, dude, hardcore. So I guess that settles it. Western maidcore is absolutely a very possible thing. We've also settled that maidcore is simply a tag, as Ozoi puts it, so it's not like you need to stick to making post-rock or some shit. Seems like you can make whatever you want, and because of that, I think maidcore is especially a great thing for artists to get into that are struggling to get their name out there. And if that's you, you've been uploading music for 5 years and nobody cares, becoming a maidcore artist would probably get a lot more people interested in checking out your work. But of course, as Kichi says, don't be a parasite on maidcore and get into it because you want to chase numbers. That's fucking lame, man. Come on. It's also a community, so try to take the time to meet some of these people and understand what they find appealing about this niche before jumping into the pool. But you also don't need to necessarily follow the paved path that's in front of you. It's like the immersive Sims of music, so don't be afraid to explore and experiment and try something new. Guy who's been uploading to SoundCloud for 2 years and your only legacy so far is Twitter debates on whether your music is breakcore or ambient jungle, you can be a maidcore artist. You, the 17-year-old Cuban kid who's been producing SoundCloud beats, but everyone dodges your emails because hip-hop producers are incredibly oversaturated and nobody cares anymore. You could be a maidcore artist. You, guy who's been uploading song covers to YouTube for 7 years and is too afraid to start producing any of their own music because you're batshit scared of criticism. Put on that maid outfit, man, see where it leads you. I'm sure that many of these maids, as well as people in the community, would love to hear what some of you can come up with. Maybe you'll be the Kanye of maidcore someday, who knows? Maybe you'll fucking suck balls and nobody will like your work, but that's okay, man. As long as you can recognize that and reinvent yourself, eventually there'll be people out there that will genuinely resonate with your work. Who knows, man? But that's just how it is going into any community. You'll never know if you don't start. If you can figure out a way to sign up to VK, I would suggest that you do. All the maids are active on there, and believe it or not, it's actually not a terrible website. I thought it was going to be some shitty bootleg Facebook, but no, it's actually a lot better than even Instagram or fucking Twitter or X, whatever the fuck that site's called now. And no, nobody's paying me to say that, I promise. Speaking of which, if you want to support these artists, unfortunately it's a little bit difficult, but they all got their own methods. Some of them sell merch, some of them got donation links like Boosty. I'm not entirely sure how Bandcamp sales work. I'm not going to get into the details of all that, but I included all the links and additional information I've gathered in the description, so you can go check those out once you get the chance. And if there's any other maids watching this that have their own methods, feel free to let me know. Send me an email or some shit. I'll gladly include it in the pastebin. But at the very least, what I encourage everyone to do is just share their music around. I'm sure you've got a favorite maid, or maybe a few, so don't be afraid to introduce all your Discord friends to maidcore. Don't be afraid to slide the DJ a 20 with a USB containing Sins by Kikai. Don't be afraid to speed through residential areas blasting some Yabai the Maid.
لست واثقا من أن هذا الفيديو سيحقق نجاحا كبيرا.
Ale nie skończyłem jeszcze z darmowym marketingiem.
Vamos a dar una vuelta en coche.
You know, when I was a kid, I used to think that the US and Canada were the only two countries that people lived in. Everywhere else was either a complete wasteland or 1,000 years behind in technology. As a kid, it's whatever, right? Kids are fucking stupid. But a lot of adults here still kinda think like that. Russia is literally the biggest country on Earth. Half of these motherfuckers can't even point that shit out on a map, let alone figure out how to find maidcore. But I'm not gonna sit here and upload a video that's gonna get like 2,000 views max. If I'm really lucky, maybe 10,000. Every time I advertise maidcore online, nobody bats an eye, and you know what? I'm sick of it. I'm just gonna start vaguely threatening people to listen to maidcore, because if you're not listening to or producing maidcore, you might as well just fucking die. Luckily, cute anime girls grab people's attention. Maidcore is like the most marketable thing you can push right now, so here I designed and printed out 30 posters of an album from each of the maids that I interviewed, with the addition of a meme caption saying, "Listen to maidcore or die." Zoomers will eat this shit up, I'm telling you, I'm a marketing genius. Here we got Kichi's A Reborn album, so fucking good by the way, I really like this album. Oh shit! My bad, Kichi.
Don't worry about it.
Dore's album, Pathetic Creatures, this will definitely catch some eyes. Sib, we got Kaidi, great album, Alexithemia, fantastic track, God bless you Sib. Ozoi, we got this one, no fucking idea what it's called, but I heavily fuck with the album cover. And finally, Yakui, this was a hard choice, it was either going to be DFC or Polynear Party. Had to pick, this album's really good, I can't help it, I really like this one, plus it's the most recent one, I might as well just use it. We're taking over the world, okay, and Toronto is the first stop. We are making this shit global, motherfucker. If I don't hear Calamity playing on Walmart speakers by 2025, I'm doubling down. Don't download my posters, they aren't very good. I kind of fucked up on the format and I don't feel like fixing it, so I suggest that you make your own. If you want a download link, I can set that up. I'm too lazy to do that right now, man. But no more gatekeeping. It's been at least a decade and this shit is still underground as fuck. So yes, go out on the street and physically threaten the people around you. Do it for the maids. You don't gotta share this video, I could seriously care less. Instead, share my maidcore playlist on SoundCloud. It's got like 200 something tracks, more than 10 maids. I don't know, man, it's in the double digits. Trust me, just send that to all your friends and family, they won't be disappointed. I really believe that maidcore has a lot of potential here in the West. We like a lot of weird, stupid shit, and maidcore is just stupid enough to heavily appear to the dopamine rabbit holes that many of us Gen Z cats have dug ourselves into. So get out there, you crazy assholes, let's make this shit blow up. Oh, and fuck you, YouTube. Black Origin still works like a goddamn charm. Google just doesn't stand a chance. What can I say? But that's the end of the video. Have a nice day. That was corny as fuck.